Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens. And as always, I hope you are doing super fantastic. And I've been trying to think of a different way to describe what I mean when I say that the human collective are on a negative trajectory. And it's like this: supposedly, there are 7 billion people in the world ish. 7 billion ish. Not sure I even believe that, but it's fine. We can go with that. Now, there may be 7 billion avatars, right? And am I implying that they may be NPCs? A lot of them? Well, kind of, maybe. I mean, NPCs meaning non-player characters. I'm just going to leave that there because, for one, it's not a very popular topic. People get triggered when they hear that, and two, it doesn't really have anything to do with the point that I'm trying to make anyway. So, but 7 billion people, that is, in theory, that is a potential for 7 billion experiences. 7 billion different, unique, separate experiences. In theory, that's true. However, I believe that that would crash the system. I mean, completely crash the system. Now, whether or not this construct is a simulation, like a computer simulation, or if it's just a simulation in mind, or whatever the case may be, conservation of energy is still going to be a thing. It is very hard to cater to so many different trajectories, so many different paths, I guess would be the word I'm looking for. So, collective and or herd mentality would just save energy for the system to keep it from crashing, to keep it so that it can just conserve its own energy. However, and also they would just be a lot easier to manage. Of course, that goes along with the whole conservation of energy. It's just if you had 7 billion people all going 7 billion people all going 7 billion different directions, that would be very hard to manage, and it would, I believe, crash the system. Anyway, so when we look at mob mentality, when you look at a mob of people, let's say 1,000 people, and that would be considered a collective. That because they are all moving as one, they have a group think going on. Think of it like an angry mob, right? They are usually very unreasonable, and as a group, their thinking is usually not great. It's most people from outside the group would see the group and think, God, they're kind of stupid. However, if you go into that group and you just pluck out any individual at random, you're going to realize that that individual probably is rather reasonable, intelligent, and may or may not even really agree with the group that they were just plucked from. It's just, and in a lot of cases, like, I don't even know. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of that. Maybe they're a little embarrassed. I don't know. That's getting off subject again. But when we look at groupthink or mob mentality versus individuals, we see a very big difference. In a lot of cases, that collective, that group, is on a negative trajectory. As I've said many times, the human collective are on a negative trajectory. But by plucking out those individuals, that would be equivalent to them having an awakening, or maybe plucking themselves from the group. When they have the awakening and think, wait a minute, I am a divine spark of the Creator. I have creative power. I'm a very powerful entity unto myself. I don't have to be going this way. I don't have to be going this negative way. So, so I'm going to have to separate myself from that group, meaning being plucked from the group, and go my own way. And if that means I'm going to go just by myself, well, then that seems to be the case. However, a lot of times you're going to find others who are also that way. But we don't want to fall into another mob mentality. But when I say those things, like, some may be NPCs, some, I don't know if they're NPCs or if they're just asleep at the wheel and participating in the collective, the group think. But when we do awaken, when we do have our awakening, we realize I am a very powerful, immortal co-creator. Inside me, I have the divine spark of the creator, having a unique experience, or at least the potential for a unique experience. And from this day forward, I am going to have a very unique experience. And in fact, it's going to be positive. I'm not going to go that negative way with the group anymore. And some people are like, yeah, but there's people I love in that group. There's my family members. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Except maybe by you doing that, you can hopefully they'll kind of look back and say, well, everything is going badly here. The world is not great, but yet you're doing great. And then there's people scattered about that are in the same world, in the same construct, and they're doing fine. But they have usually said, I'm not doing that. They're usually doing completely different things from that of the group. But anyway, ultimately, we are all connected. So when I say that individual, I really press a lot into individuality. But please understand, dear loved one, I know that we are all connected. We're all connected to each other, and we're all connected to Source, or universal consciousness, or God, our creator. We're all connected there. In fact, we are operating under this illusion of individuality or separation. Really, there is no separation. In fact, as I've said before, time, space, distance, those are all also illusion. Everything is held in one place. Everything is held in the mind of the creator. Now, there may be unlimited amounts of constructs. I don't know. This construct that we are in is a physical 3D linear realm, meaning it observes time. We operate under the rules of time, space, distance, separation. And we have to respect that. Even though we know we are immortal entities, even though we know we are a very powerful creator, in this construct, the rules are we have time, we have space, we have distance, and we have separation. We also know that the construct can't have 7 billion people going in 7 billion different directions. It would crash the system. That's my personal belief. I don't have any way of proving that, of course. But in this, but the rules are, as I said, the rules are time, space, distance, and separation, and we have to play by those rules while we're in this construct. So when I use the words like, when I say things like we are all individuals, we are in here. But we are here to have separate, unique experiences. You're going to have an experience as you, and only only the way you can. I'm going to have an experience as me. Now that mob, that group think, that herd, that collective, they are operating as one entity. They're all going in one direction. They're all going the same place. They're all doing the same thing. And unfortunately, in most cases, it's not good. In fact, when we look at the world as a whole, it's certainly not good. But there's nothing we can do about that. All we can do is what we can do. We can awaken ourselves, realize that we are divine sparks of the Creator. And we are very powerful creators in our own right. And we can then chart our own course. We can then go in a positive way. And by doing that, yes, wake some people up. Just by being examples of what you can do when you separate yourself from that. When you realize, I am divine spark. I'm just checking my notes, dear loved one. Hey, while I'm doing that, if you would, since we're on the subject, because we're not, if you would go ahead and hit the like button, that'd be great. I would really appreciate it. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please do that as well. And if you feel like you know somebody who might want to hear this, please share it. I would so appreciate that too. I really would. But I use the words like we are all individuals, and I make it sound like it's some kind of selfish thing. But it's not really. I mean, it's just that in this construct where we are, this world that we're in, that is the case. And because the construct needs to save energy, it's going to corral people into herd mentality. It's going to lull them asleep. So that way they just blindly and unconsciously go with the groups. But when we have that awakening, we can separate from that. So the difference between individual and mob mentality, most people realize that when you're on the outside looking in, you're like, yeah, they're not very reasonable, and probably not, just not thinking. And they're not. It's a mentality, even if it's 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, 7 billion people. It's as if they are one entity, made up of many divine sparks. At any time, any one of those can awaken. That's how we've ended up here. I got to believe you're not listening to me if you're not having an awakening. Really. So there's that. But yes, we must play by the rules of the construct while we're in it. And yeah, I believe there are many constructs. And the experiences in those could be so different that it's things we can't even fathom here. So once we master this, one thing we do know is as co-creators, we are learning to manipulate the quantum field. We're learning to manipulate and manifest from nothing. I'm not a big manifestation guy, but I'm smart enough to know that the quantum field is what it is. And we are able to manipulate that once we have an awakening and realize I am divine spark of the creator. So anyway, dear loved ones, yeah, I just want to encourage you to choose a positive trajectory for yourself for this life. And if you're concerned about the people that you're leaving in that group, best thing you can do is lead by example. So anyway, dear loved ones, yes, if you have not hit the like button yet, please do so. And subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. And also in the comments, if you would, let me, I want to go there kind of with the whole NPC thing, because when I think of 7 billion people, I'm like, I have a hard time believing that there's 7 billion souls here. But I mean, it's possible that they are, because that would further explain why they are kept in that asleep state. It's like, yeah, we can't. It's like if I were the construct or the controllers or whatever, I'd be like, yeah, we absolutely cannot allow 7 billion people to awaken. Because if they would, I mean, geez, it would just be madness. There'd be 7 billion things going 7 billion ways. So if we can keep 1 billion of them on this trajectory, that knocks out a pretty good chunk of them, and they're just going that way, and we just cater to that one thing. Anyway, so, but NPCs, what are your thoughts on that? Because I don't know. I kind of lean that way sometimes, but then I also think, no, they wouldn't have to be NPCs, because that would explain the whole asleep at the wheel thing. So anyway, let me know what you think. That's what I got for you, dear loved ones. I do love you. I do. And I'll be back directly.